There was a moment in human history that nobody recorded. No painting survived it. No bones marked it. No tool was left behind to tell us it happened. But it did happen. There was a first time, a specific day, a specific human being, walking through grassland or forest or scrubland, and then the ground changed. The air changed. The sound changed. And they walked over a ridge or through a gap in the rocks, and the world in front of them simply did not end. Water, stretching to the horizon, moving, alive, making. A sound unlike anything they had ever heard. The ocean, for a species that had spent its entire existence navigating rivers, lakes, and familiar landscapes. Nothing in human experience had prepared anyone for this. Think about what that moment must have felt like. Not the ocean as you know it, not beaches with sunbathers and ice cream and warning flags. The raw ocean. The ancient ocean. The ocean that had existed for 3 billion years before any human eye ever looked at it. Enormous, loud, smelling of something completely unknown, moving in ways that had no explanation. What did that first human do? Did they run? Did they stand frozen? Did they call out to the others behind them? We do not know. We cannot know. But we do know what happened next. Because the evidence is in the rocks, in the shells, in the ancient DNA of every human being alive today. They did not run for long. They came back. The earliest confirmed evidence of humans living near the ocean comes from the caves of Pinnacle Point in South Africa. The date is approximately 164,000 years ago, at a time when the rest of Africa was suffering through a catastrophic drought, when inland food sources had collapsed and human population numbers had dropped so dangerously low that some researchers believe our entire species came close to extinction. A small group of humans found the coast, and the coast saved them. Professor Curtis Marean at Arizona State University has spent decades excavating Pinnacle Point. What he found there changed the way scientists think about human survival. Inside those caves, he discovered the remains of shellfish, mussels, limpets, brown mussels in enormous quantities. He found evidence of fire. He found the earliest known use of red ochre pigment. And he found tools, small, precise stone tools called bladelets, that were more sophisticated than anything being made anywhere else in the world at that time. These were not primitive people stumbling onto a beach. These were people who had figured something out. The ocean was not a barrier. It was a supermarket. Shellfish do not run away. They do not require weapons to catch. They do not require a coordinated hunting group. A single person, a child, an elderly woman, someone injured and could walk along a rock shelf at low tide and collect enough food to survive. The caloric density of shellfish is extraordinary. A handful of mussels contains protein, fat, zinc, iodine, and omega-3 fatty acids. The precise nutritional profile that neuroscientists now believe was critical for the rapid expansion of the human brain. This is the part that changes everything. The human brain is the most metabolically expensive organ on Earth. It consumes 20% of the body's entire energy supply. Growing a bigger brain requires sustained access to specific nutrients, and the single richest source of those nutrients on Earth is seafood. The current leading theory in human evolutionary biology, supported by researchers including Michael Crawford at the Institute of Brain Chemistry in London, is that the human brain could not have grown to its current size without sustained access to marine and coastal food sources. In other words, the ocean did not just feed our ancestors. The ocean built the brain that you are using right now to understand this sentence. But before any of that could happen, someone had to see the ocean for the first time. And before they could eat from it, they had to understand it. The ocean is not like a river or a lake. A river flows in one direction. A lake is still. The ocean moves in patterns that repeat. Waves, tides, currents. But those patterns are invisible to someone experiencing them for the first time. The tide alone must have been astonishing. Imagine watching the ocean recede, the water pulling back, the rock shelf emerging, strange creatures appearing in pools left behind, crabs, sea urchins, anemones, starfish, things that move but do not look like animals, things that are alive but do not resemble anything from inland experience, and then watching the water return, rising, covering it all again. The first humans to witness a tide had no framework for what they were seeing. The ocean was not behaving like water was supposed to behave. It had a rhythm, a breath, a pattern that took time to understand. But ancient humans were extraordinarily good at pattern recognition. It is the cognitive skill that made them the most dangerous hunters on the planet. The ability to observe something repeatedly and extract the rule that governs its behavior. They would have learned the tides. Not in one day, not in one season, but over time, across generations. The knowledge would have built slowly. When to go out onto the rocks, when to come back, what creatures appeared at which stage of the tide, which pools contained the most food. The ocean would have become knowable, and once it was knowable, it became home. The evidence for this transition is written in the ancient DNA of modern humans. When researchers study the genetic history of human migration, tracking the slow spread of our species out of Africa and across the globe, a striking pattern emerges. The earliest routes of human migration almost always follow coastlines, not the interior, not the grasslands. The coast, humans followed the coast of India. They followed the coast of Southeast Asia. They reached Australia, a crossing that required navigating open water, at least 65,000 years ago. They reached the Americas, according to some researchers, by following the Kelp Highway, the chain of productive coastal ecosystems that runs from Northeast Asia down the Pacific coast of the Americas. The ocean that terrified the first human, who saw it became the road that connected the world. But there is something else, something that the archaeological record hints at but cannot fully confirm. The ocean may have done something to the human mind that goes beyond nutrition and migration. Professor Brian Swimmy at the California Institute of Integral Studies has written about what he calls the primary experience of immensity, the cognitive and emotional impact of encountering something so large that the mind cannot process it in ordinary terms. The ocean, the night sky, a mountain range. These are experiences that exceed the brain's normal scale of reference, and there is evidence that such experiences do something specific to human cognition. Studies of what psychologists call awe, the emotional response to encountering something vast and incomprehensible, show that awe reliably produces a specific set of cognitive effects. It shrinks the perceived sense of self. It increases the sense of connection to something larger. It promotes curiosity over fear. It enhances creative and associative thinking. And it appears to be uniquely powerful in humans. When the first humans stood at the edge of the ocean and looked out at a horizon that had no end, when they experienced something that their brain had no category for, no previous experience to map it onto, no language to describe, something may have happened in that moment that went beyond survival. They may have asked why. Not in words, not yet, but in the way that ancient humans asked questions, through gesture, through attention, through the sustained focus on something that did not behave according to the rules. Why does the water move? Why does it go out and come back? What is beyond the horizon? What lives inside it? These are the questions that, eventually, humans would spend their entire civilization trying to answer. The ocean was the first thing humans encountered that was genuinely bigger than them, bigger than their group, bigger than their landscape, bigger than their experience, and instead of turning away from it permanently, they turned toward it. They learned it. They ate from it. They followed it around the world. The species that first stood at the edge of the ocean, frightened and amazed in equal measure, is the same species that eventually built ships to cross it, submarines to explore its depths, and satellites to map every feature of its floor. The first human who saw the ocean did not know any of that was coming. They just stood there, at the edge of something enormous, heart beating faster than usual, watching the water move. And something in them did not run. Something in them stayed. That something is still in you.